1960, Nigeria gained independence as a sovereign nation with autonomy over her affairs and people. 60 years gone by, the nation has made tremendous progress in almost all human endeavors. Today on What Matters, we look at Nigeria's progress in agriculture and the price paid for independence. My name is Nneka Michael. Agricultural programs is one of the legacies that was inherited from British colonial administrators in 1960. And since then, it has remained in the hearts of the people. Now, how did it all begin?
Food is an important aspect of man's life and a source of livelihood. From creation, man was made to live happily by exploiting the arable land before him for food production. As nations began to increase and populations surge, the contestation and scramble for resources to cater for citizens as well as make life meaningful began to dominate statecraft and policy thrust of numerous nations. These desires, however, prompted colonization and acquisition of territories by supernations over lesser communities. The area called Nigeria was not left out in colonization. Agriculture was a critical factor in colonizing the area called Nigeria by the British in the 19th century.
Before the coming of colonialists, when the missionaries and explorers got to Nigeria, they saw Nigeria as a country with large arable land, fertile land, and large bodies of water. And they saw various crops at various regions. So they thought it wise to invite the colonialists who were mainly in the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America, looking for raw materials for their industries. Upon arriving in Nigeria, they found out that Nigeria had surplus palm oil, groundnut oil, cocoa, timber, cotton, and their likes, which could feed their industries, improve labor, and also generate employment and wealth.
The arable land and available cash crops ignited lots of interest from supernations who scrambled amongst themselves to acquire Nigeria as a colony. Although Great Britain was lucky to have Nigeria, but soon after amalgamating the protectorates of the North and South in 1914, massive agricultural production began.
Upon arriving into Nigeria, they brought the Nigerian people together, amalgamated them, brought modern farm methods, brought seedlings, and brought semi-mechanization so as to improve the cultivation of crops that are mostly needed in Britain and Europe.
So basically, if we look at the Southern Protectorate, then we have cash crops like cocoa, rubber, among others. And down to the northern part of the region, we have groundnut and we have cotton, among others. So this is the main attractant that calls them down to this region for the colonization, so that they can exploit the vast agricultural land and the vast cash crops that we are having in this region. And if you can look deeply, and history have made it clear for us that during this colonization, they have been able to extort this land and these cash crops, and that brings about development in the transportational system and railway particularly.
The struggle to have Nigeria amongst supernations shows that Nigeria was a bride blessed with abundant mineral resources. No wonder 60 years after independence, the nation has remained the interest of supernations. After we gained independence in 1960, what did we do with the agricultural achievements of the colonial administrators? Also, what achievements have we made in agriculture so far?
By October 1960, when Britain was handing over the administration of Nigeria to her nationalists, agriculture had become the mainstay of the nation's economy. After independence, public policies by successive governments were tailored towards promoting food security through agriculture, including raw materials for agro-allied industries.
Britain left agriculture in Nigeria at a very advanced stage, even though we had the semi-mechanized system. Upon the departure of the British, up until the last few years of the first decade after independence, agriculture accounted for 71% of Nigeria's foreign income before the discovery of oil.
The early players of Nigeria's politics no doubt maintained the agricultural policies left by the colonial administration. The three regions exploited the road networks that agriculture had created. The north prospered in cash crop production of cotton, groundnut, millet, amongst others, while the south became successful in cocoa, palm oil, and rubber. These cash crops were transported by rail and road to seaports for exportation outside the shores of Nigeria.
These economic relations led to the establishment and improvement of harbors, railways, roads, storage facilities, all aimed at sustaining the production of raw materials to feed their industries. But upon departure, Nigeria turned and used all these things that the British left for her own economic advantage. The textile industry was fed by the cotton produced in Nigeria. The soap making factories in Nigeria were fed by the granite industry and the palm oil industry. Timber provided wood for books, provided wood for furniture, and improved foreign income.
In spite of the progress made in agriculture, it is worthy to note that agricultural production all through the era from colonial to post-colonial was still primitive and lacked technology. The existence of this method can be attributed to the colonial administrators who made no effort to alter the production technology as long as production was being made available. This neglect was a major setback in food security when Nigeria's population began to rise. Available statistics on food production from 1970 to 1980 witnessed a decline from 102 in 1970 to 88 in 1980. Sadly, Nigeria began to import capital for development, and her gross domestic product dropped from 61.50% in 1963 and 1964 to 38.04% in 1972 and 1973 and 14.63% in 1983. In order to boost food production, in 1973, the National Accelerated Food Production Project was initiated, and subsequently the River Basin Development Authority, which was to cater for land and water resources during dry spell. Consequently, in 1976, Operation Feed the Nation was launched to encourage Nigerians to farm, as well as Green Revolution in the early 1980s.
Feed the Nation, the essence of it is to motivate farmers to produce abundant food that will accommodate the existing consumption level of Nigerian citizens. It also provides financial resources to assist farmers in purchasing some agricultural equipment in order to utilize it to produce abundant food. Operation Feed the Nation, and also it gives credit to farmers in a lawyers with a low rate of interest. So that it will motivate farmers. And for the first time, I think it's under Operation Feed the Nation that fertilizer was started to be imported into this country in order to yield the agricultural products.
Before the Obasanjo regime, there was the National Accelerated Food Program, 1972 to 1973. When it failed, General Obasanjo came and floated Operation Feed the Nation. The essence of Operation Feed the Nation was, one, to make Nigeria sufficient in food production, to improve the nutritional level of Nigerians, and to use agriculture to impact on national growth. Also,
indeed, with some programs, we were able to make substantial progress in agriculture, but the sector still remains backward due to certain challenges. Let's take a look at some of these challenges and what the citizens are saying.
Despite the intervention of these programs, Nigeria's agricultural sector began to experience a setback as a result of the discovery of crude oil, which became the nation's source of huge revenue. Also, the sector has continued to suffer delay in progress, with consequential evidence in unemployment, rural-urban migration, lack of incentives and infrastructure, including inadequate extension services. Knowing the value and importance of agriculture to the nation, some of the citizens have been canvassing for a holistic approach towards improving agriculture and food security in the nation.
High budget in agriculture can only make effect in Nigeria if we allowed those who are fully in agriculture to do the needed. Why would they do the needed? Because government has given them support. Look at the 774 local government. The government need to empower the local government to ensure that the farmers who are residing in each of the local government get participated. Why? With free mechanized tools, free fertilizer and all that.
The way I will say, our bedrock being country Nigeria, foundation basically lies on agriculture. If agriculture can be one of the compulsory course that every student from JSS1 to SS3 should take as English as mathematics, I think it will be better. Not just say you are going to agriculture. So that even from home, from primary one, your parents, your guardians will teach you how to do areas of agriculture, so that even though when you get to JSS1, you are already getting one or two skills from the youth sector. You need to involve huge amount of money because of the ecosystem we have in an environment. That is the basic truth of the matter, because if you go to the southern part of the country, you will see the environment where that we are having fishes, all this seafood that they normally do. Let me say fish, periwinkle, all those things called seafood is no longer there because of the ecosystem, because of oil activities that is going around there.
The discovery of crude oil was one of our major challenges in agriculture, leading to multiple issues that have held the sector backward for decades. However, there has been some support given to the sector to boost food production and manufacturing within the value chain of agriculture. Let's have a look at some of these programs.
Of late, there have been concerted efforts by the government at revamping the sector in order for it to take its rightful place in the nation's economy. One of such is the Agricultural Transformation Agenda, which was aimed at increasing food security and reducing expenditure of foreign exchange on food imports.
Growth Enhancement Program was designed first of all to ensure that farmers had smooth accessibility to seedlings and fertilizer. And these fertilizers were done in a wallet system such that once a farmer registers with the farming associations, they front load it to the government. Once government does all the necessary checks, government allocates them to a supplier. And once this supplier is able to achieve 100% supply of seedlings and fertilizer, the person gets 10% achievement fee. Through the Nigerian incentive-based risk-sharing system for agricultural lending, GES sought to mobilize 450 billion naira from the banks into the value chains.
Another of these efforts aimed at revamping agriculture is the Anchor Borrowers Program, an incentive-driven agricultural program that has provided quantum of money for dry season farming and diversification of crops for revenue and food increase.
Particularly the one that I am familiar with, which is the Anchor Borrowers Program, which is passionately driven by the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, is one of such policies. And I think it is a direct intervention program designed and directed at poverty alleviation, particularly, as it specifically targets smallholder farmers who contribute upwards of 68% in terms of farming population. Also, you talk about maybe food security, as the ABP has actually targeted 10 commodity crops that are essentially food crops. Essentially food crops. And of course, if you look at employment generation within the scope of the Anchor Borrowers Program, which means, of course, that they've empowered farmers to readily engage workers, that's the laborers at the farm level, transporters, for instance, for loaders, agro-processing companies are the anchors, obviously, factory workers, and so on. So I think basically that they've really, the program has really helped in these areas.
Nigeria now produces rice in large quantity and at least can sell to its citizens. Maybe not at the price we like, but it's an improvement. It's in the right direction, definitely.
Administration, through various pronouncements and support windows, also have encouraged local and foreign participation and investments. It is worthy of note also that government approved the release of commercial release of GMO seeds, particularly for, in my area, for cotton. And I know cowpea is coming up or has come up. But this obviously will significantly also boost production to the levels of agriculture or agricultural production that we were all used to in the 60s, like you mentioned, to be able to ensure that it does drive the Nigerian economy going forward.
For 60 years, the nation's agriculture has been sustained by small-scale farmers who make up about 80% of labor in the industry. With poor implements, they have increased food production and also generated high metric tons of outputs in various crops. Huge employment opportunities have also been generated with lots of impact on poverty alleviation. As the nation moves into a new phase of life, it is unequivocal that agriculture will be the leading light of the new era.
There is great hope about where we are heading when one looks at the agricultural programs that have been initiated and supported by various governments. We go on a break. What Matters continues in a moment. Nigeria has come a long way as a united nation, bound together by common purposes. I tell you, what binds us together is more than what can separate us, and we hope to be together to celebrate our Platinum Jubilee when we get to 70 years. That's how far we can go today on this special edition of What Matters. Bye.